Hello and welcome to another episode of Stories with Ourselves Unscripted, the first for 2026. Actually, I wanted to do this last year, but Christmas and all that, so we didn't really have much time. Anyway, just as a little background, of all my collections, basically, Transformers, He-Man, Star Wars, G.I. Joe Classified has probably been the most prolific because everything else is basically winding down. I'm done with He-Man, not touching any of the Masterverse or Origins, so I'm happy with my classics collection. Star Wars is just really slow, so not much going on there, maybe a figure or two. And Transformers, I'm basically upgrading pieces, right, as better ones come along. But as for classified, well, the hits just keep on coming. So basically, for 2025, it was all about classified. It was a toy line that I got the most out of in 2025. So yeah, I figured it would be a good way to start by updating. I already did a run through of my collection for 2024. A lot has changed in the display, so I figured this would be a good time to update, go over stuff I've done. I've rearranged a bit here and there, and basically, I think there's a story to tell. So, yeah, starting with my favorite edition of the year, Law and Order. If you know, you know, he's the first Joe named Chris, just like me. So, yeah. And with that, let's get started. Okay, for starters, let's do a quick overview of what I currently have. So, first of all, I'm recording this during the day. There's going to be a lot of noise, ambient noise and stuff, but I figure the trade-off is better lighting. So, please don't mind if you hear dogs barking or construction next door or whatnot, but that's just the way things go. So, yeah, I'm going to be showing pictures of what my collection looked like a year ago, and obviously from looking at it, you can see especially the Cobras are pretty crowded. But anyway, if you recall, I had my G.I. Joe Classified displayed along my steps, so mostly by year with some exceptions. But anyway, we'll get to the changes as we go from each display. And over here, breaking the trend, we have the MCU villains, which have had better days. I don't know. I'll probably most likely move these guys away and maybe move the Cobras up there or something at some point. But anyway, let's get on with my classified collection. Okay, so first up, my original 13. So 2025 gave us, thankfully, more members, and we're this close to finishing up the original 13. So major additions, we had 3 major additions to this shelf. So we have Steeler there in the back. That thankfully did not come packaged with a Mobat, which would probably have meant a very expensive HasLab. So Steeler. I got the more retro version of Breaker with the bubble gum. The previous Breaker was pretty cool. He was sort of like a modern version that came with the RAM cycle. I still have him. I'm just trying to figure out what to do with him. But obviously this one beats him in every way, especially with the bubble gum. And then, of course, Short Fuse, who came with Steeler. A special Joe for me, nostalgia-wise, because he was the very first Joe that I got as a kid, the first 1982 non-swivel arm version. I got him because I thought he was a leader because he was blonde. But anyway, so he's a very welcome addition. I know he's not tops of anyone's lists, but for me, it was really a nostalgic thing, and I was super happy to have him released. And in fact, I think I paid a little bit of a premium on him because I was too trigger happy on a pre-order. But whatever, I got him. And so with that, Zap is scheduled to come out in a few months. And then that just leaves Flash and Grand Slam. I know that there is a more OG version of Hawk available with the MMS system, but I still haven't gotten around to getting it or pulling the trigger on it. I had a chance that I missed out on getting him solo without the MMS, but I kind of hesitated, and someone beat me to it. But so anyway, for now, 86 Hawk will do, but most likely eventually I will get that original Hawk. So yeah, OG 13 or 14 shaping up nicely. Next up, we have the 1983 display. No major changes here except for the addition of CoverGirl. So in my previous display, she was with the 1984 dudes. simply because I just figured they needed more. Well, we'll get to that later on. But anyway, so 1983, I put her back here because technically that's where she belongs. She came packaged with the Wolverine. So I still have my old. I know that Hasbro has since released a retro version of CoverGirl with the blonde hair and the more accurate green uniform. But I still opted to keep my current CoverGirl, the one with the Sharon Carter head, because one, I think this head looks better. And two, I don't know, I'm not quite, I just don't feel like getting another CoverGirl. So maybe one day, but as of now, these guys stay as they are. So 1983. Okay, so 1984 is probably the one of my displays with the biggest changes, basically because in my previous display, Mutt and Spirit weren't a part of it because they belong to a later display, which we'll get to later on. But so they belong, officially belong with 1984. So I moved them back up here. We got a new edition in Blowtorch. And as of now, Dusty is here because, well, you'll see with the next shelf. But so Dusty has kind of been adopted in the 1984 shelf. And so, yeah, a little more fleshed out. The only major character I think we need here is Ripcord, which hopefully we won't have to wait for too long. Oh yeah, over here I'm hoping to get a Wild Bill soon, not through the HasLab, but supposedly an upcoming retro version, which would probably be the cartoon version, which will be released this year. So Wild Bill. And over here, we already have a Night Force Ripcord that was released in the HasLab Dragonfly, so hopefully a retro version isn't far behind. I was tempted to get the Paratrooper and just put Kamakura's head on, because he's a red head and stuff, but I'll be patient, I'll wait for Ripcord. So yeah, this is 1984, almost complete with Dusty. My 1985 shelf also saw some major changes. So Barbecue is back here from his previous location, which again we'll get to later on. We got Footloose, and yeah, I think that's the only thing. Okay, so I'm stuck. I've decided to stay with this Flint because I know there's a retro version and he's cool, but I don't know. You know, I'm kind of a fan. I mean, I do love the retro versions of the Joes. I appreciate them, but I kind of like these. He's got a lot of dust in his beret. I haven't properly cleaned these. But anyway, I kind of like these sort of like modern mashups. I mean, as long as they're not too extreme, you know, with the golden armor and stuff like that, like what I think the original Duke and Roadblock had. So I like this modern version of Flint. I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority here. So I've decided to stick with him over the retro version. And so yeah, other than that, everyone's the same. Again, Barbecue's back where he belongs. And yeah, so that is my 1985 update. 1986, so this is my biggest change, one of my two biggest changes. So if you recall, I'll post a picture I'll post a picture up on the corner or something. This used to be my Mad Marauders display, which was composed of Joes, repainted Joes from the 86, 85, and 83, and 84. Line. So we had Mutt and Spirit from 84, and then we had Barbecue from 85, Barbecue and Footloose from 85, joining Lowlight in 86. So those were the Mad Marauders. But as cool as that display was, it kind of depleted the numbers from 84 and 85. So given that this year Hasbro kind of like made up for released a lot of 86 Joes, so it just made sense to make this a straight up 86 shelf, 86 display. So we got Wetsuit and Sci-Fi and Dial Tone, I think. Was Dial Tone released? Yeah, Dial Tone was released also last year. Yep. So we've got a really fleshed out 86 lineup. Lifeline is on the way again, maybe in a couple of months. And are we missing anyone else aside from the drivers? Let me know. Anyway, so I've got Leatherneck and Mainframe. Again, I'm happy they're here, but I guess I'm just like everyone else, kind of bummed out that they kind of made these guys really short. They used the wrong body molds and the wrong legs, so they're really short. So I've got them conveniently kneeling down so that their height isn't that noticeable. But yeah, other than that, I'm quite happy with what we have here so far. So I love the Mad Marauders, but a more solid 86 shelf display is much more appreciated. Okay, and so then we have 87. So this is a new shelf, new display. So this was actually where my classified display ended. It had the, well, we'll see that with this shelf. This shelf used to be here. This display used to be here. But anyway, so this is a new one. It's an 87 display slash Rawhides. The only exception would be Beachhead, who technically belongs in 86, but well, 86 is full. So he fits in nicely with 87 as the trainer of the Rawhides plus Outback. So this is the 87, basically 87 line. New additions. One of my favorites of the year, obviously, is Law and Order, because he is, one of my favorites because his name is Chris, just like me. So I was super excited that he was announced for 2025 and that we got him. And so we just have one more guy for the Rawhides, and that would be Big Lob, also due in a couple of months. But other than that, 87. Who else is missing for me? Oh yeah. So I wouldn't mind like a Psych Out and Sneak Peek can, not come. I wouldn't care for him. But yeah, as an 87 Rawhides, this display, this works for me. And Crazy Legs is on the way. I'll probably prop him up somewhere up here, jumping off. He's got the screaming head and everything. So 87. So with the addition of this meant that I needed an extra display spot for the Joes, and that would be these guys, which are technically the 1988 line plus some guys. So this originally was conceived as my ninja display, but now it's become a hodgepodge of stuff. But I guess over time it will become an 88 display because we've got Shockwave, we've got Budo, probably one of the best versions or best figures that Hasbro released last year, and Storm Shadow version 2, which are all 1988 figures. And then Hit and Run is due again in a couple of months, so more 88 dudes. Hopefully we won't have to wait long for stuff like Spearhead. I would love to have a Spearhead. But anyway, yeah. Filling up the rest would be Ninja Snake Eyes, the usual suspects, Kamakura and Helix, and then the two Night Force I got for Quarrel, and I got that for Falcon's better head, which is better, but not by much. But anyway, I did enjoy getting another female Joe and Quarrel, who's almost falling here. But anyway, so yeah. So that would cover my Joes. 88 and extra stuff. 87, Rawhides. 86, 85, 84, 83, and the OG 82. So those are my Joes for 2025. And now we have the Cobras, who, if you look at my old picture, which I shall post now, had quite a good number of figures released. And so these guys are looking rather overcrowded already. Again, they will probably be moved up here to my MCU villains. But for now, they're all crammed up in here. So let's get started. Starting with the top here, the High Command. Nothing much has changed here. Still the Twins, Dr. Mindbender, Storm Shadow, Destro, Blood. I still kept my original Cobra Island Blood and didn't get the retro one because why would I? And Firefly and Darkness. We get major additions with the Dreadnoks. So first off, we got Xandar, who looks amazing and finishes up the Zartan family, at least until supposedly Zanya's coming. And a ninja Zartan, who I'm still on the fence on getting, but anyway, it's good to have Zorana and Xandar. It's nice to see him get a lot of love with this figure because it's a really good looking figure. Speaking of which, Monkey Wrench gets a lot of love. Again, he was never a favorite of mine, but this figure, it's really good. Monkey Wrench and Xandar, huge additions. So hopefully we'll be getting a Thrasher and Zanzibar soon. The rumor is we'll be getting a Thunder Machine, hopefully not as a HasLab, which Thrasher will most likely be included in. But anyway, hopefully we won't have to wait long for those two. And then the major ones are the Troopers. So we got a whole lot of new Troopers. I just love collecting Troopers. So we got the Desert Scorpion. His huge mutant Scorpion obviously has no space here, but he's on my Jabba the Hutt display right now. He's right there. But I don't know. I'll figure out a better place to keep him. But anyway, so yeah, Desert Scorpion, who was also a really cool release. The original figure came out. Well, a lot of these newer ones came out when I was really done with collecting Joes as a kid. But I mean, these designs are just so good that I just had to have them, regardless of lack of any nostalgic pull. So the Desert Scorpion, the what's this guy's name? Shoot, I'm having a brain fart. Frag Viper. Okay, so yeah, the Frag Viper. Again, another one I'm really happy to get. They reimagined him as some sort of cybernetic trooper. But yeah, I just love his bug-eyed helmet. And then, well, I'll get to these two later on. Saw Viper. So he's new. I wasn't too excited about this guy, but I have to admit, he's a very photogenic figure. I'll post some of my favorite pictures here of the Saw Viper that I took. He's very photogenic. The regular flavored Viper and the Televiper. So classic troopers that I just took my sweet time getting because I just didn't feel the rush. I'll always be partial to the original blue Cobra Trooper, so maybe there's that bias there. But yeah, the Viper's cool, and so I waited for the retro version. This is the retro version. And yeah, it just took me forever to get around to getting him, but I eventually did. And the Televiper, I wisely stayed away from the one that was with the trouble bubble, because I don't need any trouble with any bubbles. But yeah, I got the retro version. Not a big fan of the Televiper per se, so again, it took me a while to get him, but I eventually did, because you need your classic troopers. Okay, then we have the odds and ends. So first up, we have the Ninja Slice and Dice. So again, these guys originally came out during a time when I was done with Joe's. So I got into them later on. Like even the first time I saw them in the comics, I thought Slice and Dice. I didn't think anything of them, but later iterations, especially the IDW comics, really won me over with these guys. So it took me a while, but I eventually got them. They pair really nice with Budo. They make good adversaries, I think. And they came with a hell of a lot of accessories. And I like these modern takes on them. They also came with alternate heads, which I decided to forgo because, I'm more of a OG type of dude. But yeah, I really enjoyed Slice and Dice. And on a personal level, so you got Slice and Dice. The other one that I got was Pythona. So if you didn't know, I have a very extensive 25th anniversary collection, but most of it is in storage. So in order to finance and to make sure I don't go too crazy on spending too much on classified, I decided to sell a good number of my 25th anniversary figures. And two of the ones that I had were these dudes who were part of the Collectors Club, and she was an exclusive. And so it was kind of hard to sell them, but at the end of the day, I don't know, I decided to, when it came to the 25th anniversary, to stick to the vintage ones, like the ones I really collected as a kid. And so I ended up selling my Pythona and Slice and Dice, which gave me a good, I was able to sell them for a good price. So getting these guys in classified kind of helped soften the blow. These are obviously so much better as 6-inch classified figures. So yeah. All right, so Centaur, and then, okay, Crystal Ball. So one of my biggest frustrations, I know a lot of people make fun of them, but the 87 lineup of Cobra, so you've got Crocmaster over here, Crystal Ball, Raptor, and Big Boa. A lot of people make a lot of jokes about them because they were like really kooky characters, but I always liked them. And what I liked about Classified was that they kind of amped up their character. So Raptor obviously looks a lot more formidable with his mechanical wings and stuff like that. So I was quite happy to get him. He was one of my favorite additions for last year. But one that I was particularly looking forward to was Crystal Ball because, again, so he's got a history. He was a horror character made by Stephen King, and he was a hypnotist. And well, a lot of them felt like jokes in the original toy line. So the dudes in Hasbro made it a point to try to amp up his character as well. So IDW made him into like this scary, visually he looked like Alan Moore, the writer, like sort of like a Rasputin type of character. But this guy looks more classic. I would have liked that an alternate head of that long-haired whatever, but this is perfectly fine. And I'm rambling here, but bottom line is I like what they did with this crystal ball. Made him like an expert in illusions. So this sword and everything are supposed to be like hallucinogenic illusions or whatnot. They came up with a ghost viper, which I haven't gotten yet. Just I don't know. I just haven't been won over completely with that concept. But yeah, and it was my biggest frustration that for the 25th anniversary line, I didn't get to complete these 4 Crocmaster. Crocmaster wasn't easy yet, but the other 3, Big Boa, Raptor, and Crystal Ball, were part of the Collectors Club exclusives, the subscription service, which cost a lot, and I honestly missed out on the other 3, and so I could never afford those, or I didn't feel it was worth paying those second market prices for them. So I'm quite happy that we got all 4 Misfits in classified form, and you can throw in Shadow Tracker here because he kind of fits. So yeah, and that would be my Cobra shelf. Oh wait, sorry. Battle Armor Cobra Commander. So yeah, I forgot to put in there. So I have him flanked with his 2 officers. So Scrap Iron and Copperhead. So it works because Scrap Iron was always seen as a loyalist to Cobra Commander until he got paid more by Destro and stuff. But for tradition's sake, he was always a loyalist to Cobra Commander. And in the Deke series, where this armored version of Cobra Commander came in, Copperhead was featured quite a lot, siding with Cobra Commander. In fact, he became part of the Python patrol that Cobra Commander brought in. So yeah, the armored Cobra Commander, he is also a nostalgic favorite of mine just because his creation meant that Serpentor was going to be replaced and the real boss was back. So obviously his design is not as iconic as the chrome-faced Cobra Commander, but it's still a great version. And I like the extra touch of the eyes being very serpentine because supposedly this was Cobra Commander brought back from being a snake. And speaking of which, he came with Iguana, sorry, more dust. But now Fiona has a friend with Serpentor Iguana. So yeah, Cobra Commander and his 2 flunkies leading the troops. So it makes sense. Chrome face Cobra Commander up in the back and Battle Armor leading the charge. So yeah, that is my classified collection for 2025. What are some stuff that you're expecting or hoping for 2026? I'm really excited because hopefully we will complete the OG13. We get Ripcord. He was a favorite of mine growing up. Airtight, we need Airtight for 85, for 86. Who else do we need? I can't really think right now. We're getting Lifeline. Oh, Iceberg. Hopefully we'll get Iceberg is supposed to be coming up soon. And 87, we've got Big Lob. And who else? I can't really think right now. Well, I really like Psych Out, so I hope we get a Psych Out. And for 88, Spearhead. No other figures come to mind, but I'm sure there are a lot. Blizzard. I want a Blizzard. Anyway, so that's it for 2025 G.I. Joe Classified. Thanks for watching, and until the next episode, yo Joe.